Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL Clash of the Correspondents. And I'm delighted to say we've got one of this season's current top four joining us this week, but it's maybe not the one we'd expected. Firstly, let me introduce you to our Liverpool correspondent, Dan Lord. How are you, Dan?
Hi, James. Hi, everyone. Hi, Sam. Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
And as introduced by Dan, our Brighton and Hove Albion correspondent, Sam Murray. How are you, Sam?
I'm very good, thank you. Hello, everyone. Nice to talk about some football during the international break.
We'll come on to you. We got plenty to talk about, mate. Dan, where do we stand with Liverpool's start? Good, bad, shit? How do you feel?
Shit, yeah.
Why?
The $1 million question, isn't it? I've been racking my brain, as of probably most Liverpool fans. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's an accumulation of many things, or form from too many players at the same time. Sometimes you can carry one or two players. Injuries haven't helped, considering we were talking pre-season about how in-depth our squad was, and then suddenly half of the midfield goes down. I think a bit of mental fatigue's in there. You know, after last season coming so close again, yet so far. And I think just accumulation of all these things. I can't put my finger on it, and you know.
Yeah, I think with you saying, I think there's something to be said of that. The fact that quadruple was getting mentioned, and it was right to be spoken about with the League Cup in the bag, FA Cup final with Chelsea, Champions League final Real Madrid, pushing City when you looked to drift, and you got right back on top of them. And had a very similar run into what the two of you had a few years ago, where you both finished on a stupid amount of points. Yeah, I wondered out on reflection if a season of finished second in the league, Champions League runners-up, both domestic cups, to feel a bit flat in the end when you reflect on it now. I know we discussed that in the summer, and that's an unbelievable season for nearly every club on the planet. But does it now feel even flatter reflecting on it?
No, I think it's similar to what I've said previously. When I I'm of the older generation than a lot of people who are FPL players and on these podcasts, etc. But I remember Liverpool when they were good, and I've had to endure all the bad times in between. So it was a great season for me. I'm happy to see Liverpool up there challenging again, and I don't know, it was a great season. And if City were about, we'd be winning more. It's just that they're just better.
I think it's not just the results that have alarmed so far this season, though. Is that fair? It's actually the performances. I mean, Drew at Fulham could have lost. Palace, ironically, you were a little bit unlucky in game week 2, considering what happened with Darwin Núñez red card. The United game was shocking in terms of how they overpowered you. Then you recover with this blitz against Bournemouth. Okay, everything's fine. Newcastle, you won right at the death. Everton could have gone either way. You could have lost. You could have won. Could have gone either way. And this really alarming performance in Naples in the Champions League as well means that, we reflect on, and Ajax was one very late on as well. We reflect on the season and feel like you've not been comfortable in any game other than the Bournemouth game, which in itself almost feels like an anomaly because of the final scoreline.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in pre-season, but we played very well in the Charity Shield, Community Shield, whatever they call it these days. And like you said, I'd argue that probably Palace has been our best performance this season. Bournemouth, like you said, it was an anomaly. Even Klopp said we've played that way before and won 2-0 lots of times. It just, everything went in. The ball, we got the rub of the green on every single kind of thing. Deflections fell to us, and it did hide the fact that there was real problems for a week. Newcastle was a little bit better, and Napoli was like it was memories of the 7-2 with Villa. It was you thought they were going to score every time they went forward. It was like, here we go again. And Ajax was much better. That's probably the best performance of the season. Coincidentally, is that with the return of Thiago and Matip? Only time will tell, I suppose.
Are they that important? Because a lot of people have labelled, obviously, Thiago and Fabinho in midfield, and obviously Joel Matip at centre back. It's worth saying Konate as well. Is it as simple as that? Missing one or two key players? Because it feels like we should be beyond the point with Liverpool now, where one or two key players missing feels like as big an issue as it has.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's a whole host of issues that we have, but I think that is one of the big ones. Liverpool are very systematic, aren't they? The way they play is very much based on the system, and I think the more you have without these guys around, the more it hits home of how important they are. The fact that the right-hand side of Liverpool, Matic's side, he kind of brings the ball out, and that is a system. That's why Trent's always high up and Mo's always high up for Matic to do that. You never see Bird do it on the other side, although he's perfectly, he's got the ability to do so, I would have thought, but it's not the way they play on the left-hand side. It's always been the case on the right side. Gomez just doesn't do it. He doesn't look comfortable on the ball. I said pre-season that I'd argue he's Liverpool's best centre back other than Birch. He doesn't look like he's recovered properly from that injury. He's come into a side which is low on confidence and too many people around him performing badly. But going back to the system, so Matic has that importance. I think Thiago is, and this goes back to losing Wijnaldum, I think. He's just so good against the press. He's almost press resistant. And so was Wijnaldum. And although Wijnaldum, wasn't this great player, he was never injured, and he'd always receive the ball and very rarely give it away. He'd never do anything really creative with it, get the odd goal.
He shield the ball well, big physical presence. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and Thiago has more to it than that, but he's almost press resistant as well. You know what I mean? It's very rare that Thiago gives the ball away. It's usually a stray pass, which anyone can do. But yeah, it's not just as simple as them two players. I'd argue that really Diaz and Alisson are the only two who come out with any credit for the first few games.
I was going to follow that up and say, who's playing well for you at the moment? Are you saying just the two?
I'd say Harvey Elliott's done well. However, I want to say he's almost part of the problem as well because of Liverpool's kind of good run of form over the last few years. Been built on kind of a really work hard ethic in midfield. A lot of, and he's technically very gifted, is Elliott. You know what I mean? But does he have the legs that like Wijnaldum, Henderson, the younger Milner? And it almost seemed like without Thiago there and 37-year-old Milner being there alongside Fabinho, that Fabinho was almost covered in three positions. He was like, had to be here, there and everywhere. And I think, that's part of it. Trent seems away with the fairies, Burge as well, Robbo. So I think Salah's all right, but it's just the way everyone else is playing. I don't think Salah's been playing badly, but the too many of them, those names I mentioned, have. And that's part of the issue.
I want to bring Sam into the conversation, but we'll get onto the manager stuff, Sam, 100%. But just briefly on Liverpool, you drew 2-2 up there last year, despite going 2-0 down. And the year before, when Liverpool, you went up there and won, when Liverpool were in the middle of this really bad run with the injuries and COVID and stuff. So you've gone up there and won and drawn your last two visits. Does this game this weekend feel like shit yourself, it's Liverpool away? Or do you go there with confidence?
I still think it's almost a free hit, Liverpool away. We know what they're capable of, but with our record recently, like we've done well, and I think we have to go there and think we can get something. The way the season started, definitely.
How do you see their issues? Do you think they're at a weak moment, or do you think it's natural order they'll catch up to City like they have done in the past?
Well, I think they will. They'll find their feet. They'll be up there. Obviously, I don't know it from a fan's perspective, but I just feel like it looks like they've already starting to run out of steam. The last 3 years, they've kind of had the same sort of, first team and same sort of squad. So I feel like they need a few fresh faces in there. But I think the quality will show eventually with the players they've got, and once they get back to a fully fit team, I think they'll be up there again. Maybe because of the start, not quite title contenders like they have been, but I think they'll be okay.
Do you think this break's been good for you, Dan, or not?
Absolutely.
Dan's nodding very firmly for the benefit of the audio listeners.
Yeah, it couldn't have fallen at a better time, to be honest. Gives us time to regroup, get on the training pitch, get bodies back, bodies we need, important bodies, and yeah, just kind of distance ourselves really from everything that's been going on, and kind of almost start again.
Do you expect to chase down City or not?
I think it's just going to be too difficult. I mean,
that's mad though, mate. Seven games gone. You've played 6 games.
City don't look like they've got out second gear yet.
No, but they've dropped a few points. Yeah,
I mean, it is still very, very early, but we're going to have to put a really good run together, of an unbeaten run for 20, 25 games, or, the odd points dropped in that period. And at the moment, we look a million miles away from doing that.
I think the fear is, and I think you're right, I think the time to reset has been probably quite good for you. But certainly, I think we couldn't write you off from chasing them down at this stage. I mean, I probably would have been writing you off around about Gameweek 25 last year, and you nearly caught them. So it would be silly to write you off at this stage. But if it goes wrong over the next 3, we possibly are looking at that, aren't we? If it goes wrong against Brighton and then you go to Arsenal and then at home to City, then it could be gone really early, couldn't it?
It could be, yeah. And this is a mentality thing as well, that'll leak into the players also. And then, do they kind of just go for a steady kind of league finish, hopefully, try and get top 4 and then concentrate on the cups if we're kind of out of it too early. I don't know. It's difficult to put your finger on because they've been so good for so long now, and then suddenly it's just gone to pot, hasn't it?
Yeah, I want to come back to some of these individuals and ask a bit deeper why some of the stuff's going on. But Sam, heartbroken still, or okay, or for those who live under a rock? Obviously, Graham Potter resigned and took the job at Chelsea, and Roberto De Zerbi, we now know he's the new Brighton and Hove Albion manager. How are you feeling at this moment about it all, Sam?
Well, I'm still not over it really. When it happened, I was a bit angry, but I think a week's gone by, and I think now it's ultimately it's important to thank him and I think appreciate how he transformed the team. Had so many memorable moments, and I do get it. I understand why he's gone. It's a bigger club. It's Champions League football, and of course, it's life-changing money. And I knew it would happen eventually. After so many games last year, I'd tweet, and at the end of the tweet, I would say something like, "I'm just enjoying it while he's here, while he's got the team playing like this." But I think the disappointment comes from the timing more than anything. I didn't think it would be so soon, especially the way we started the season. So yeah, I am gutted. Players and managers come and go. I remember being so sad when Gus Poyet left as manager and when Glenn Murray went to Palace. But this time I was really gutted because not only it happened so quickly, he also took along with him some of the staff members that were here before him.
You weren't happy about that, were you?
He took Bruno. I can't believe he took Bruno with him. But
it just club felt legend. He suddenly went for the money as well. Yeah, I think
that's it. We've been building up for so long, and Chelsea came along and took the lot. We started the season so well, and we'd finally figured out our system. Trossard wing back, McAllister a bit deeper, and it all just clicked into place. And I think after that Leicester game, definitely people coming out of the Amex were thinking maybe, just maybe, we don't want to get too carried away, but we might be pushing towards Europe. But yeah, I am gutted, but all is not lost. We've still got an excellent squad, and we're 4th in the Premier League. As long as we have Bloom and Barber, I'll be optimistic, I think.
Can I read this tweet out from the 8th of September, mate, with your permission? Actually, I was going to do it anyway. I was sad and disappointed. Now I'm just angry. We build our way up just to get cleared out by the big teams. This is the ceiling. No matter how hard we try, we just can't compete. It's ruthless.
I still feel that way.
It's
Yeah.
a bit heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah, and I try and be optimistic because I look at the table and we're still fourth, but it just feels like we've been building up, and as soon as we get any sort of success, I mean, we've taken the risk with Potter initially and some of the players we brought in, and then as soon as you start to break into the top 6 or 7, and it could happen again with our new manager, but
Yeah,
it's fine. I'll still be there every week. It'll be okay.
Is it though, mate? Because look, you're fourth in the league. It's worth saying you've had an incredible start. And I think anybody who watched the Leicester game was probably at a point where if they'd had doubts and gone, well, they won at United, they were a bit shit. Well, they won at West Ham were a bit flat. And okay, Leicester defensively, obviously kamikaze. You could have got 10 against Leicester, mate. You destroyed them far better than my team did this previous weekend. And I think as much as a lot of the focus was on Leicester afterwards, even the scenes with Potter on the pitch afterwards, it almost felt like something, it sounds ridiculous now, something new was starting. As in psychologically, Brighton were on the cusp of saying, yeah, do you know what? We're going to try and push these 6 this year. And I guess it probably feels like it's been taken away, but that's not necessarily the case, Sam. The new manager might be even better.
Yeah, it does feel like that. And I guess we'll never know just what Potter could have done this season. We could have got into the top 6, but yeah, it's a new era now, and there's definitely some similarities with the new manager. And I think the hope is that he picks up where Potter left off.
How do you think Potter will do at Chelsea?
I think, well, with the new owner, I think he's been given the chance, to build his team up, a new project. It's a very different project to the one he had at Brighton when he took over a Houghton team which was struggling to score goals and just about staying up. So there's definitely more pressure on him now, and you need success at Chelsea. If you give him time, I think he'll do well. I don't know if I hope he does well or not. I did have a little smile when they conceded to Salzburg in the Champions League, but
ironically won one already.
Yeah, I think he'll do well. I think he's a good coach, and they're lucky to have him. I hope they appreciate him as much as we did.
I think it's okay to have conflicting emotions on that, mate. I think that's very normal. Once you got to the point where, and it all happened so quickly, it was Leicester Sunday, Tuchel sacked Wednesday. It was like, I think it was even by late Wednesday, it was like, it looks like it's happening. He's traveling and stuff.
Yeah.
What at that point were you thinking about your football club, about what you wanted next? Did you want, because this has been very successful with a British manager, did you want the club to stay on that course? Or is there a case of just sit back and relax and there's a process in place that the club will deal with?
Yeah, I always have, like, I trust the owners 100%, and I think it's apparently he was our first choice, De Zerbi. It's an appointment that makes sense, and I think like our player recruitment, a lot of this would have been driven by data. We would have had a plan long before Potter left with coaches who play a similar way, have similar principles. So I'm happy we've gone this way, I think, and there's a bit of risk, but I think there's definitely similarities with Potter. So hopefully it goes all right.
I described it as possibly, when the job was vacant, as arguably the best pound for pound job that you could have. In terms of you walking in, the groundwork's been laid. You'll get well backed by the owners in terms of time, financial, when it's right, etc. You've obviously sold heavily this year with Basuma and Cucurella obviously lost from the squad. So there's money to reinvest, I'm fairly sure, as well. Is that how you'd see it? Almost like best pound for pound club?
Yeah. I think it's a great job. You're going to be backed by the owners, and the expectations aren't too high just yet. With a manager like De Zerbi, he's been in the Champions League, and I've seen in the last week Juventus fans were saying they want him to be their next manager, but he's come out and he said from as soon as he saw the job was available, he was studying our games and looking at our players, and it's a job that he wanted, and I can see why. I think it's a great job, and it's a similar risk to when we went for Potter as well. it's a great job, and he takes over a team who are doing well. It's not like he's taken over after a manager's been sacked and a team struggling. So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for him.
What do we know about De Zerbi, Sam? What have you learned?
Well, I knew a bit about him from his time at Sassuolo. I didn't realise he went to Shakhtar, but I've been studying in the last week, looking at his tactics, and I think I'm cautiously optimistic. It sounds a bit risky. The main focus, and I've seen in interviews and his tactics, is possession. He focuses in on individual technique and confidence on the ball, and he wants to control games and have the most possession. He's attacking and he likes to play it out from the back, which is a bit scary, but he draws in the press with that possession around the back and looks to hit teams on the attack. And he usually is played a 4-2-3-1 formation, which on the surface, I did straight away think, I'm not sure about 4 at the back because we don't really have the best options at fullback. But I think he could make it work. Then also playing with proper wingers. So you probably have March or Trossard out wide. Even players like Matoma could fit in. So it's interesting. I think judging by his success, we'll create a lot. We'll have a lot of chances. Probably concede a few more goals than we're used to, which was an area which I think of Potter's game, which I think was quite underrated. We had one of the best defences in the league. So I think we'd expect, as a neutral, I think it's another exciting Brighton manager. I think people will enjoy analysing his tactics and seeing how he adapts and progresses. And I'm interested to see how he does. Sounds fun.
Yeah, I've come to some very similar conclusions to you from my analysis. I've done a piece for advanced tier patrons on him specifically and his spell at Shakhtar this week. 4-2-3-1 is definitely preferred system.
Yeah,
they are very unique in the sense that a lot of the philosophy is to invite the press from the opposition. We are talking about a very narrow setup in terms of passing lines, where they are happy to play through that. We are talking about short, sharp passing, but the game will be very slow. The centre-backs won't commit. They'll stand on there's clips when you can look at Shakhtar and Sassuolo players where they stand on the ball and just wait for someone to come from. If nothing's happening, they'll stand and wait. It's very unique. Then it gets very short and sharp, and then they try and spin you and break lines, and then they're off fast. And if they can get it into wide wingers, could be quite exciting. I think Trossard, from what I've looked at, is the player I think could really benefit if he ironically ends up playing in a left wing position now rather than, say, left wing back. I think probably another winger will become a priority for you, I think, in January. But it's really exciting. You will invite the pressure all the way to the goalkeeper, mate. You're gonna have kittens at some points, mate, but you're gonna have some fun. I think there's days where we're gonna look at this and it'd be like Bielsa stuff. God, this is great. Yeah. And there's other days I think if someone gets the press against you, mate, you're gonna die. And you're playing one of the best pressing teams I've ever seen next week. How do you feel hearing that, Dan?
Yeah, not pressing very well this year. Like Sam said before, and I've said to a few mates, particularly before the United game, if there's ever a good time to play Liverpool, it's now. You know what I mean? With the morale, the confidence looks shot. Yes, they improved against Ajax, but you don't want to be going to a team with a new manager bounce, really.
We don't know if it will be, though. This is really, really unpredictable with Brighton to the extent that I think, like, me and Sam have both identified 4-2-3-1. I think Sam's going to agree with what I've said, though. I'm going to say is he might walk in the club and go, actually, this is best set up for a back three. I'm going to play 3-4-3, which he played quite a lot at Sassuolo as well. 4-2-3-1 looks favoured, but he's also played 4-1-4-1. He has got variations, and it might be he walks into Brighton and goes, yeah, back three, Sam. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think back three suits us a lot more than a back four right now. I'm not. If we played a back four, a left back would probably have a Stupinian, who I'm not convinced defensively just yet, but he is the only option we've got there. And then it would probably Veltman at right back, or maybe even Lamptey if he favoured him. But I would prefer a back three. I think right now a four looks like it's what he prefers. I think that'll be his long-term plan, but yeah, short-term is a bit more difficult to predict because we are playing well, and he probably, there's no need to come in and make drastic changes. But he definitely has a squad that is flexible, can play loads of positions, and suit his his ideas for having a technical team. So I think he'll mix it up a bit, and it probably be quite hard to pin down a lineup and a formation.
He's very capable. Just looking at the kind of coming out with the ball with the centre backs from the back, I noticed two phases just looking at highlights of Shakhtar games where it's 2-4-4. So you got 2 6s, double pivot, the fullbacks push alongside, create a line of 4, the 2 centre backs sit back, or what we've seen quite a lot from City, the 2-3-5, where the fullbacks come in inverted and then sit with one, and one of the 6s pushes on a little bit higher. So he's got multiple different ways of playing it, and I don't think Sam, we could sit here and say, guess what to do with your Brighton FPL assets. Good for you, Sam.
No, yeah, that's it. It makes that quite difficult.
Dan, why are so many of your individuals underperforming? If we just focus on the individuality, I'd like to start with Van Dijk, to be honest, first and foremost. I feel like he's been in a mood since the season started.
Yeah, I really don't know. I'd love to be able to give the answer, and the only thing I think about Van Dijk is he's a little bit complacent, isn't he? He's got this arrogance about him, and sometimes I think he doesn't give it 100% because he thinks I don't need to. But actually, he's at a phase now where you never see that Van Dijk give penalties away, and he's already given a couple away for just sloppy tackles. It was well highlighted his defending against United for their first goal, where he just stood there. I don't know. Is it mental fatigue? Like I said earlier, I really don't know. I could be guessing at so many different things. He's not at it, and he'll be the first to admit that.
That's very alarming, though, when he's been so important for you. Are we in a position where maybe he's not returned and it would be understandable, as the player that he was prior to the injury at Everton? And perhaps it was masked somewhat last year by the fact that the year before was such chaos with what you experienced at centre-back. Just having him back, his presence lifted everyone, but actually now he's struggling a little bit himself, maybe.
No, I don't think so. He played well last season as well, after the injury. I think it's just more the supporting cast. When you're doing badly, you need players around you to kind of, pull you up and get you right. But, if he looks to the left, Robbo's having a nightmare. If he looks to the right, so's Gomez, and then there's Trent on the other side. And, there's so many players, like I mentioned earlier, that there was probably only a couple who were actually performing of, 8 out of 10s, whereas everyone else were bordering on 4s and 5s every game.
Trent, same mistakes over and over. Are people picking on him, or is this real? I look at particularly some of them goals in Naples and stuff, mate, and you really are left scratching your head sometimes with him.
You see, I don't know if there's a few things about this. He doesn't look mentally right sometimes, like he switches off all the time. And, it's been well documented that his defending is not great. However, I've been, saying he's getting better and better. He's all right. It's defending when the ball's nowhere near him as such is what he struggles with. Is it the World Cup on the horizon and all the is it Reece James? Is it Trippier? Is the right back? Is that playing on his mind?
You take all three of them anyway, mate.
You would think so. But he plays in a system that Southgate's not going to adopt. he wants a defensive fullback. Well, Trent isn't that. We all know that. You know what I mean? He spends half his time in the other team's pitch, side of the pitch. I mean, there was a I think it was against Ajax. There was a goal kick from Alisson, and Trent was the furthest man forward. And this was a goal.
We saw in the Palace game, he was floating into centre forward position despite being a man short. Yeah,
and I think Matip covers that very, very well because he understands. They've had that relationship built up over the last couple of years, and I'm not sure Gomez does understand it the same. And then also you've often had Henderson in that right centre midfield role, who that's what he does well. Now you've got Elliott who's probing and looking for the killer pass and that creativity. And probably what he doesn't do as well as the others is the defensive side of it. And I think it just exposes him even more. And also because Liverpool are doing badly, it's probably highlighted a bit more. Maybe this switching off and letting runners go by happens more often than we see. But he gets away with it because there's cover there. And maybe he's just not getting away with it at the moment. I really don't know, but he's been poor.
And Robertson, who we should say at time of recording has got an injury we don't know the extent of, but he's obviously not going to play for Scotland and is obviously a doubt for the Brighton fixture next Saturday. Not completed 90 minutes in the Premier League since game week 1. Is there what's the issue there? It's strange. Dragged off against Palace 62 minutes. Bournemouth at home, okay, fine. Game 1, 68. 70 minutes against Newcastle. Not starting at Everton. Is there a greater problem with Robertson?
Again, who knows? I mean, if tabloids and reports are to be kind of believed, he's one of the lowest paid players in the first team. Has he got a bit of an issue about that? Is he wanting a better improved contract? I want to say he's around 40 grand a week, 40, 50 grand a week, which is, nowhere near what other people are. I worried about this pre-season, and I mentioned it in the pod we had pre-season, is this massive contract for Salah pushed everyone's nose out a little bit? Is that part? It doesn't seem to be on the pitch. It's not like people are blanking Salah, they're all getting on, the training pictures, everyone's happy, everyone's smiling, but, it makes you think.
I think when a team's in a bad moment, we start looking for things that we don't look for when you're winning 8-9 games in a row. If Salah signed the contract in April and then the way you finish the season, no one says anything. And we're not suggesting that Mo Salah's new contract is necessarily at fault here. But yes, we did speak about it and say, well, there's a lot of other players in that dressing room now. I've got to go up a significant amount in wages, not as high as Mo, obviously. But yeah, if Mo's earning arguably 10 times what Andy Robertson's earning, and Robertson is always putting the effort in, then that's going to get questioned eventually, isn't it? But then it's surprising. It feels surprising to me that Robertson's only, if that's the salary he's on, he's only been on that for as long as he has, and Liverpool haven't addressed that a lot earlier. It seems strange.
Yeah, and you don't know. This is just what's leaked in the media. You don't know how much truth there is in it. The article that I saw fell in line with other salaries that I did know about, so it made me believe that there might be some truth in there. But I think Robertson, for the second part of last season, he was off, and Tsimikas has been pushing him real hard for that position a little bit, and a lot of the Liverpool kind of diehards and the fans, they've been saying put Robertson out for a few games, get Tsimikas in, and that's, I think, without the injury to Robbo, that was going to happen anyway. I think that there was going to be games where actually let's give Tsimikas a try, and he did very well actually with Tsimikas in the game he came in against Ajax. I think it was Ajax.
Yeah. He started at Everton as well. I didn't see the first half of that game, in fairness.
Yeah, he wasn't great against Everton, but nobody was, to be fair.
Except the goalkeeper.
Well, yeah, and Pickford as well made some worlds, didn't he?
He did.
I don't know. Yeah, they're all not at it, are they?
Okay, Mo himself then. Is there a concern that he's spending too much time too wide?
I think so, and this is why. Although I said I think Elliott's been one of our better players, he's looked good. He's looked, probing, and he's one of the people who can hold his head high at these first 7 or 8, 9 games. But I also think it's part of the problem as well because of the way he plays, as opposed to what we're used to in that midfield area, and I think that's affecting Salah. With, of course, the inconsistency as a centre forward. Is it Bobby, and then Núñez decided to stick on the Anderson, so then he goes out for a few games. Jota's back in the running now, so hopefully we can get a bit more settled. And I don't know, that right side of midfield I think needs addressing. As good as Elliott is, I think I'd like to see him come out, but for who at the moment?
So with that in mind, then, if everyone's fit, are you still 3 would be Fabinho, Thiago left, Henderson right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's perfectly understandable. What about the impact of Núñez? Is something do you think happening in Salah's game, which is part of a strategy to adopt and integrate Núñez into this team?
No, I think it's more to do with Elliott's role in there. He's pretty much played every match as Elliott. I think, although Núñez is there, he's been involved in a few games. I think he's probably only played about 400 minutes, maybe even less. I could check that out, but he's played, and that's including the Community Shield as well. I don't think it's that, because they've not played long enough together in the same team for it to have had an impact. I think it's more to do with their right side of midfield, and obviously Trent having a nightmare as well.
I will tell you, Dan, in terms of Premier League minutes, Núñez has only played 174 so far. Mo Salah has played 540. And across those minutes for the two players, they've had the same number of shots on target this season, which is 5. Mo Salah averaging at under 1 shot on target per game is, for the fantasy listeners, extremely concerning, no?
Yeah, it is concerning, and that's. But I don't think Núñez is the problem that's caused that. It's just the supporting cast. Everyone's off, and it affects other players who aren't particularly playing bad, and Salah's one of them. But when people around him are, football's a massive confidence game. We've all been watching it for years, and we all know that confidence is huge in football. And if your confidence gets knocked, you make great players look mediocre very quickly.
Yeah, that's fair. Sam, you're an extremely good historical FPL manager. Where do you sit on Mo Salah at the moment?
Well, I haven't had a good season this year so far.
Yeah, I did the big up, mate. Not for you to shoot yourself down, mate.
Well, I'm on wildcard right now, so there's some decisions to make there, definitely. Okay. Obviously, you're looking at Salah and Trent, usually be a lock in your team. You could make a case for both. You could make a case for none of them. So I'm not really sure. I think I'll have Salah. I think I'll have Salah for this week, and then see where that leaves me after the weekend. But I'm really not too sure.
Is that biased as a Brighton fan?
It could be. I wouldn't captain him because he's against Brighton, but I think it's a good. But then you can make a case for De Bruyne as well, and yeah, I'm definitely not set either way. I've got a week or so to decide, but I think I'll give him. Right now, the plan is to give him the next game week and then see.
It was. I don't think, Dan, since you've been doing the pods with us, I don't think I've ever spoken to you and had less than 2 Liverpool players. I've got none, and I don't have any intention to do anything about that at this minute. I am very conscious of the period after the next 3, after Brighton, Arsenal, Man City, where Salah at home to West Ham in 12 is not a brilliant fixture, but because of Arsenal, City's blank stands out. But I'm not desperate to fix this, and that feels really weird. It feels really, really weird to me. For you, Sam, is it conceivable that you could wild card here with no Liverpool?
Yeah, it's certainly conceivable. It could be 0, 1, or 2. Which is strange. Even, I mean, you're looking at Trent, and usually, I would have him in. But even if you compare him to Cancelo, which I know some are doing for the next 4, even with one more fixture, it's not an easy decision.
By the way, it's not bonkers.
Differentials, won't they? At this
What's
stage.
that? Sorry, Dan?
They'll almost become differentials at this stage.
Yes.
Because a lot of people have the same mindset.
Absolutely.
Away from Liverpool completely. So,
and that makes them very attractive, by the way.
And actually goes off when he's shown nothing all season, then, happy days for those who've gone with him.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Sam, just to clarify, if you go with none, that's not bonkers part of it. What I mean is the fact that we consider that as an option here. When Liverpool do have a home game coming up, to consider that as bonkers, the fact to say, yeah, it's okay. There's no one here essential, is there, Dan?
Absolutely not. No.
What have you got? Or are you in a similar place?
No, I've only got Trent left. I had Salah and Trent. Salah became De Bruyne before the weekend, just gone. And the plan was possibly in and out back again. But the other move I made to make which took a hit to kind of make that possible the other way, because I needed more funds the other way. I probably can't get back to him unless his price drops a bit. But I'd happily move to Diaz anyway. If so, I don't really want to take another hit. Otherwise, I'd have a bit of a jiggle about and upgrade my lower price midfielders, get rid of Trent, get rid of De Bruyne, bring Diaz in and upgrade a Bailey or a Pereira or somebody like that.
Okay, so did you start with Diaz as well?
No.
I'm trying to remember. And you didn't? No, okay.
No,
Thoughts on him? Thoughts on him on an 8.2? It feels like there's a cluster with really Maddison, Bowen. There's Bowen's more fixtures at the moment, admittedly. Kulusevski is coming into a harder run, but Diaz is certainly still very worthy of consideration at that value, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been our best player. I think there's no doubt about that. And hopefully now players are coming back around him. He can kick on and get even better. And I think Jota will be massive coming back. I think that's a really big help as well.
Does that muddy it for Diaz or not, in your opinion?
No, I think he goes straight down the middle for Jota. I think he plays as a 9.
So you think Jota versus Nunes versus Firmino, essentially? All 3 competing?
Yeah. But Jota's first choice.
He does feel like that with that in mind, that there may be times where Salah or Diaz come out of the team. We know Jota certainly can cover out wide. Do you think we could see more of what we spoke about a lot in pre-season as well, possibly a 4-2-3-1, now that all the attacking players are fit?
I think it will come at some stage in the season. I still do believe that. I don't think now is the time to tinker with the system. We need some stability, get some performances together, and then we can get a bit more creative with our formations. Or if it continues to be dire, then something needs to be done.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. It doesn't feel like the right time to be mucking about with the system. Sure, if you're chasing a goal, as we've seen in games later on, fine. But I don't think against an unknown Brighton and away at Arsenal and then City, I don't feel like that's the right time to be playing with the system. No, I agree with you. I took Salah on at the start with Diaz. He's only on 6 points less. Kind of makes me feel like I made the right decision in the first instance. If you own Salah and Haaland this weekend, Dan, Haaland at home to Manchester United, who would you captain at the 2?
Haaland.
Would that be the same for you, Sam?
Yeah, that'd be where I'd go.
Is it this with Haaland as well is making us feel different about Mo Salah, do you think, Dan?
No, not particularly. I think it's just a form thing. If Salah had 6 or 7 goals and a couple of assists, I'd probably say Salah. United, a bit like they are with Liverpool, they generally turn up when they play City. They'll be at it, and it won't be easy. And I'm sure Ten Hag will get them going, and they'll be high-fiving for every tackle like they did against Liverpool, like it was the World Cup final. I'm pretty sure that'll happen again.
I'd just like to point out, Dan, that they were doing that at Southampton and Leicester as well. It is something that started happening with them.
I don't watch him if I don't need to.
Dan, do Do you own any Brighton assets?
No, I nearly went in before the postponement with Palace. So that kind of made my mind up, and I don't know where I was going to go. Probably not Gross, because everyone seemed to be moving towards him, and maybe McAllister I was looking at, or even March. I think he's been good as March, even though it's been kind of full backish, wing backish.
What's the advice here, Sam, for those who've got Gross, McAllister, Trossard? Some have got two. I think Gross and McAllister are both in team of the season currently, aren't they? What's the advice for people now who've come through, held, perhaps might have even free-hitted last week, for example, now come into Liverpool, Tottenham, Brentford, Forest, then City, Chelsea?
Yeah.
What would you say to people?
It's a pretty tough run and still a lot of unknowns. I probably would look somewhere else. Obviously, there's a point where it seemed like everyone had at least one Brighton player. McAllister flying. I think 3 of his goals are penalties, and the other one was a free kick. So it's difficult to say that's going to be sustainable. Gross has probably been our best player. He's been excellent.
It's been great.
Yeah. But I look at the fixtures, and you'd probably look into for someone else. But saying that, like, I know a lot of people will be looking for options in game week 11, where Liverpool have got City, and then Trippier is away at Man United, I think, and then game week 12 where there's the blank as well. So they're the weeks that you probably need a Brighton player off the bench, and they're our 2 best fixtures in our next 6. We've got Brentford in 11 and Forest at home in 12. So it's not crazy to have Dunk or Webster, I think, on the bench for those games. You shouldn't need them in the tougher games, and they can come in and do a job in those 2 weeks. But no, I think in general there's too much unknown, and the fixtures aren't great. I think I'd avoid for now.
I think if you're on wildcard now, you're struggling to go with any, aren't you? Like, as you are. Is that where you're at, Sam? Are you likely to be none, or do you still kind of want to back with Sanchez or something like that?
No, I probably won't have any Brighton players in my wild card. I think now you're probably looking after the World Cup, where we could look towards Brighton again. Gives us a bit of time to understand the new system and the new manager and where players are going to fit in, because you could have, Trossard or Gross could definitely do well in the new system. So they'll be in the conversations again, and keep an eye on how we get on over the next few weeks. But no, probably be after the World Cup for me now.
Yeah, I think very great point you've made about 11 and 12. Like, I might need something specifically for 12, particularly defensively, but I wouldn't know what to do now. I don't know what your system you're going to play. A few games of information will be quite important. I think for those who've got Gross, McAllister, Trossard, I think they're all reasonable to start in game week 9, subject to what you've got on your bench. But if you're really unhappy with your bench, absolutely you can play them. Gross has been playing ever so well. Trossard, I think, might end up playing even further forward than he has been. And McAllister's on pens. So they're all reasonable to start. I'm not sure. I mean, would you start any of them over, say, Andreas Pereira at home to Newcastle, Sam?
It's just the fixture. It'd be difficult, but with the new manager, it doesn't look like we're going to get any less creative or any less attacking. If anything, we're going to be
probably start
more
them,
offensive. So there's a case. If you've got them, there's a decision.
Yeah,
it's not.
We're not saying buy, but I think if I had at the moment, I don't think I'd be looking at it as my biggest issue, because I think I'd be thinking, once I get through Liverpool, first home game with the new manager at home to Tottenham, then Brentford, then Forest, I can look at them 3 in isolation and think that's okay, and then have a proper look. What I'm fascinated to see, and I'll be at the Amex, by the way, Sam, I got my confirmation, I got a ticket. Liverpool will probably come and press you, but Dan's saying they're not doing it right at the moment. My team won't. My team will look at what you're doing and shit themselves, mate. But shit themselves structurally, in terms of just go, no, you have that. And like, we're not coming to you. We'll funnel into 5-4-1. you do your tiki-taka stuff, and we're not going to let you play through us. And it'll be really fascinating to see off the back of Liverpool and Tottenham play very differently, what teams then pick up on Brighton going forwards afterwards. Really, really interesting. I mean, it's a really, all I could say to neutrals is I think this appointment is really exciting for the Premier League. I don't think Brighton became any less interesting. It might just become more interesting. You might become shitter, Sam. You might become better. I don't know what the answer is with this yet, actually. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think what I've seen with De Zerbi is he does stick to his passing around the back, and no matter what the pressure is, no matter what the opponent is, he'll stick to it. So yeah, I think it's realistic to expect, a period of transition. There'll be mistakes, but it's definitely going to be interesting. And you look at the next few fixtures, there's every game is a different test, I think, and it's going to be interesting.
Do you, Dan, wish that Potter was still in charge ahead of this game? Does this unknown bring, I don't know what I'm getting, does that bring an element of nervousness?
No, I don't think so. I think they were flying with Potter, and hopefully his departure has knocked the wind out of the sails a little bit from our point of view. Obviously, Sam will be thinking completely different, but I mean, I think Brighton have been great under Potter, and it's sad to see him go. And like Sam said, I don't think you can begrudge his move. You know what I mean? It's a bigger club, it's Champions League football. It's something he couldn't say no to. But on the flip side, the new boss, he took Sassuolo from nowhere to a good side in Italy, and a free scoring side in Italy as well. They were always in the goals, but they'd lose like 4-3 to Juventus and things like that. So it might be, if nothing else for Sam, it might be entertaining.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's definitely going to be that. There is a danger. It's like Leicester, though. The thing is, tactically, it's another level up. The level of managers in our level that will work out ways to play against. But I think there's every chance we're going to see something very unique from De Zerbi that we haven't seen from anyone else in our league. And that, as someone who likes to analyse football, is really exciting. I wish you weren't on my upcoming fixture list for Spurs, Sam, I'll be honest. I'm probably feeling even worse about that game currently. But very much looking forward to see what you do at Anfield next weekend. Before we finish, lads, and before we do predictions, I just want to ask you both a question about Liverpool play City in 11. And I'll ask this to you first, Dan. If you were going into that fixture and had Salah and Haaland, and had to captain one, who would you captain?
I think right now it'd be Haaland, but there's 4 games for Liverpool before that time. So if there's signs of improvement, and depending on what City do in that same period, I could potentially go Salah if I had him, but it's too far away to say. From if it was this Saturday or next Saturday, then it would be Haaland.
Okay, Sam, you had time to think about that.
Yeah, I think if I had to lock in the captain right now, it would be Haaland as well.
Okay, I think both of them. My message on that, I think both of them are still very good options in that week. Salah I've spoken about enough. Has joy against Cancelo. Haaland will get more space than he normally gets in most games. So both of them can still be absolutely fine that week. When Dan, you get round to Nottingham Forest away in 13, do you intend to be in a stronger position for Liverpool assets in terms of what you want in your FPL team? Is that by the time you get there, you think I've got to have 2 or 3 back in?
Yeah, I think when we've got after Forest, it's Ajax, isn't it? And then Napoli. Hopefully, with the results going our way, we've kind of secured Champions League knockout stage after the Ajax match if we get a result. And then after that, with the Forest before that, then we've got Leeds at home, tricky tie away to your boys, and then we've got Derby in the Cup, which will be the second team playing, and then Southampton, and then it's the World Cup, and then after the World Cup, we've got a good run as well, really, on paper. I think we start with, I want to say Villa and Leicester in there, Leicester. And a couple of other games you wouldn't expect to be tricky. You know what I mean? None of the traditional top 6 after that. So it is a decent run, but it all depends on form.
Just having a look between, obviously we restart in 17. You go to the Etihad scheduled for game week 29. it's worth saying you have a fixture with Chelsea that needs rearranging at Stamford Bridge at some point. But your only big six opposition between the restart and 29 would be Manchester United at home in 26 and Chelsea at home in 21. It is a good run.
We need it.
It's a lot of football to be played between now and then. But yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. From kind of game week 12 all the way to that City rematch, yeah, it's a good run where you can get up ahead of steam. I think it's really important, Dan, that you don't fall adrift over these next three or so. I think, you know, if you lose at Arsenal and lose to City or something, that's probably too much.
To play at the moment. I've been more impressed with Arsenal than anybody this season, I think, on the arm.
They're playing very well, mate. As much as I say that through gritted teeth, I can say it. Yes, I'll be at the Emirates to see which team from North London, or shall I say North or South London, ends up top of the league at the end of that game. I'm pretty confident it won't be my team. Right, let's do predictions for the game on Saturday week. Dan, over to you first.
Tricky. I mean, Brighton are always a bogey team anyway, really, or recent years. I think if we go one down, I'll be happy with a draw. If we get an early goal, I think we'll
do you really feel like that at the moment? Like if you get in a bad place, just take something from the game. That's a really big comment.
With confidence being so low, if Brighton get an early goal, shut the crowd up, I think, you know, the players haven't turned the corner yet, you know what I mean? And there's been a big break since the Ajax game, so we don't know if we can kick on from that. And I think an early goal will just get all the crowd going, get them up, and I think we'll kick on and get the 3 points. But if we go one down, I think it might go the other way.
You know the crowd stopped singing after kick-off anyway, mate. And he's singing the build-up for You'll Never Walk Alone and all that, mate. Look, Sam's laughing. He's been in the away end enough. He knows. Am I wrong, Sam?
No comment.
Go on, Sam. Do your prediction, mate.
Could be anything. I think we'll give them a scare. I think Liverpool will win 2-1. 2-1 Liverpool.
What did you actually go for score, Dan?
If we go one up,
you say one, did you? You nearly escaped it.
If we go one up, 3-0. If we go one down, I'll be happy with a 1-1 draw.
Okay, cool. And you're saying 2-1, Sam. Bollocks. I go 3-2 Liverpool, I think. Yeah, it could be some fun in this. You're not right defensively at the moment, Dan. I think that's fairly obvious, but this little period may certainly help that. I think despite the fact Robertson's not been playing well, I don't think that's helpful if he's unavailable against a team that will come, I think, pretty fearless and will come and give you a game of football, but they may give you more chances than they normally would as well. So, yeah, fascinating
do you want
contest.
to hear another theory as to why Liverpool have been poor defensively, what's been touted around them?
Go on then, Dan.
Apparently, it's the change in the VAR rules where the level is now going in the attacker's favour, and it's got them all at 6s and 7s.
Is that correct? Is it, Dan?
That's some of the chat that's going around.
I would certainly say
Rashford would have been offside.
I do think, in seriousness, that the rule really pisses Virgil off more than it pisses off any other player I know. That where someone's offside and they don't raise the flag and let the play go, he gets so vexed with that. He doesn't want to run for no reason. If you watch it, say someone's 2 yards offside and they let the play happen, and he doesn't want to go full because he thinks, I know he's offside. Watch him afterwards. He loses the plot with linesman every time. Linesman, unfortunately, is doing
we
job,
moved
unfortunately.
We moved to that high line when VAR was introduced. We didn't start like that with Klopp.
Okay.
And so it's a theory that's going around. Like I said, nobody can just pinpoint and say we're shit because of this. There's loads of different reasons why we've just not been playing, and apparently that's one of them.
Interesting. I don't understand, Dan, how I'm in a position where I've got no Liverpool players and don't feel desperate to fix it. I think that's partly because I think you've got 3 very difficult fixtures coming up. I do certainly intend to do something about it by the time we get in sort of game week 12 and 13. I think Mo Salah will be very popular for captaincy for that West Ham game in 12. I'd just throw the caution that Nottingham Forest game is a 12:30 kickoff in game week 13 after Liverpool play West Ham on the Wednesday night. Sam, I mean, watching brief, mate, but very excited to see what your team's about to bring to this league, mate. And you've made a great start. Congratulations on that, mate. Dan, where can everyone follow you on the Bird app, mate?
It says there under my in the bottom corner, FPL_local lord.
Good man. And Sam?
I'm FPL Seagull. I try my best to predict the lineups every week. Hopefully it'll be easier with De Zerbi than it was with Potter. But
it might get worse. Mind you, you'd been so much more settled. I think that's part of the frustration as well. The team had got so much more settled over the last 3-4 months or so. Next week's Clash of the Correspondents is the North London derby with Adam Pritchard and Ricky Saunders previewing Arsenal against Tottenham. It's probably going to be next Thursday. We may change the date. Keep an eye on socials. Sunday night, we will confirm that for you. Just leaves me to say thanks again so much to Dan and to Sam. Good luck for the game week, gents. Cue music, please, man child.